This is not the next film I expected to be reviewing, but given that it had its world premiere at Scotland Loves Animation, and I happened to be in the audience, it seemed churlish not to do it. Unfortunately, this also means I have to try and synopsize the damn thing. Oh boy. Nerawareta Gakuen, or Psychic School Wars, as seems to be the likely official title, begins with the arrival of Kyogoku, a charismatic pretty boy who transfers into a small-town high school and proceeds to use his apparently telepathic abilities to manipulate the other students for reasons unknown. Only the perpetually late Kenji seems able to resist Kyogoku and his followers, but as he is far more interested in attracting the attention of a female classmate, someone needs to wake him up before it's too late. Straight from the off, I think it's difficult not to be reminded of Mamoru Hosoda's The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Gakuen, I ain't calling it Neragaku, shares not only the schoolroom sci-fi trappings of Hosoda's film, but also much of the soft, idyllic visual style. The colour palette is rich, and the lush scenery is often punctuated by rays of golden light. The look doesn't feel quite as fresh as it was a couple of years ago, but it's still pleasant to look at, and the animation is nicely handled. While the cartoonish, even naive art style may not appeal to everyone, the film rarely lacks movement and feels smooth throughout. Yet, pretty though the film may be, the story feels hugely convoluted and deeply lacking in focus. Much time is spent having the characters explain parts of the plot, but somehow it never quite gels together into a coherent whole. I was instead left with the impression that new details were just being heaped on at regular intervals until I no longer understood exactly what the threat was from Kyogoku and what, if anything, Kenji was supposedly doing to stop it. Things occurred later on in the film that the score seemed to suggest were significant, but I was just left feeling like I'd missed something. Even now, I can't work out why the baddies all had it in for mobile phones, apart from the obvious reasons, I suppose. There's also a terminal lack of tension. While the languid atmosphere fits the first act very well, the gradual takeover fails to build on this, neither creating contrast nor using it for effect. What we're left with are fitful scenes of something vaguely menacing, followed by the characters often literally dismissing any sense of danger. With his psychic powers somewhat underused, Kyogoku himself turned out to be one of the least threatening villains in recent memory, and even the nastiest of his followers are never really given the chance to show their fangs. Not that Kenji and his friends are much better, they aren't unlikable, but really they're no more than well-worn archetypes. Originating in a hugely successful novel from the 1970s, the story has been adapted for both TV and cinema before, eventually going on to become ingrained in Japanese popular culture. As a result, this film presumably expects its audience to have some knowledge of the story already, something I think will inevitably be lost on most non-Japanese viewers. This is also the first feature film for director Ryosuke Nakamura, most of whose previous experience has been on action or horror-tinged TV series, making him a rather odd choice to direct. Neither fact really excuses the film's failings, but it would go some way to explain them. It's not hard to picture some team of money men demanding certain parts be kept in, even when they no longer make sense. While it certainly feels like a terrible collection of missed chances, however, I didn't think Gakuen was a dead loss. I found it sufficiently engaging to wonder where the story was going, and the slapstick gags did get a laugh in the cinema. In part though, the reason I might be more generous in the film than most of my friends were, is due to my experience with The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. When I first saw Hosoda's film, I thought it was excellent up until the end of the second act, at which point I could have punted the disc out of the window when I found out what was driving the story. It was only in the second viewing, better braced for what was, if not jumping the shark, certainly scrambling over the porpoise, as I found myself appreciating it far more. I'm not going to pretend for a moment that Nerawareta Gakuen is anything like as good a film, but I would comfortably give it a second shot, even if I wouldn't go out of my way to do so. If someone takes a chance on giving it a home release in English, I think it probably will find an audience, but honestly, I feel it's a rental at best.